Have you ever sat quietly and wondered why everything you love eventually disappears? Why is it that the things we hold onto tightest are often the things that leave us the fastest amidst the whirlwind of life? Sometimes, only by stopping to listen to a breath, or watching a falling leaf, do people realize an undeniable truth. Nothing is permanent, no hand can stop time, no heart is immortal in its embrace. Yet, human beings often live as if they will exist forever, as if every precious thing around us will stay and never be lost. And it is precisely from that illusion that suffering begins to rise in the depths. This is one of the foundational truths that the Buddha directly experienced under the Bodhi tree more than 2,000 years ago. He did not point it out to make us fearful or to give up, but to open another doorway for the mind to live lightly in a world that is always changing. People call it by a simple name, impermanence. One silent night, the sky was covered in darkness, with only the faint light of distant stars. Under the ancient Bodhi tree, a human being sat motionless, no longer seeking, no longer resisting, no longer dreaming, a naked mind facing the truth directly. And then, in that absolute silence, a vision flashed bright. He saw clearly what humanity had forgotten for thousands of years. All conditioned things are impermanent. Impermanence is not just the death of a physical body, not just the fading of distant stars, even the joy in this moment, that deep sadness over there, a fleeting glance, a promise, a dream, all are flowing and changing ceaselessly. In Pali, the word Anicca means exactly this. There is no moment or phenomenon that stands still. Even what we call I does not stand still. Thoughts are born and then perish. Emotions rise and then fade. The body grows up and then ages. Nothing can be kept, nothing can be held back. This is not a piece of knowledge to be believed by the intellect. This is a direct experience, a vision so deep and complete that there is no room left for doubt. And precisely from this truth, the entire path to liberation opened up. From there, every teaching in Buddhism takes impermanence as its starting point, like a heart beating every rhythm to nourish the whole body. But the question still hangs in the air. Why is just one insight into impermanence enough to move an entire spiritual civilization? Because if people do not see impermanence, they will forever fight an unequal battle with reality. They want to hold onto what inherently cannot be kept. They try to solidify things that are inherently flowing. And the result is that every time life changes even a little bit, their heart tears another recognizable gash. If one truly sees that everything is changing, a miracle happens. People begin to cherish every moment because they realize it is too fragile. People know how to let go when necessary because they no longer demand eternity. At that time, walking through life becomes light, not tight, not forcing, but simply an opening of the heart to embrace every rhythm of life that is moving. Ultimately, impermanence is not sad news. It is a miracle. It is a reminder that all suffering can eventually be healed, all mistakes can be resolved, and every pain that seems undying will eventually pass. It is because of impermanence that flowers bloom, because of impermanence that storms fade, and because of impermanence that light can penetrate the dark corners of the soul that seem endless. If anyone is still wondering, since we are still living, loving, and suffering, whether we know about impermanence or not, why is that truth so important that the Buddha placed it at the center of every teaching? The answer lies in the fact that only by looking deeply into impermanence can humans break the most dangerous illusion, thinking that there is something that belongs to us forever. We often believe that happiness lies in immutability and the ability to hold and control. It is that very belief that creates the shattering of the heart. Believing that youth is eternal, we are pained by every wrinkle. Believing that love can be immutable, we despair when a person's heart changes. Believing that this self is a solid entity, We are fearful every time life pushes us out of our comfort zone. If we do not see impermanence, humans remain forever stuck in a war they can never win against reality. Try to imagine, every time life changes, a job is lost, a relationship cracks, a dream fails, the heart feels as if another piece is torn away. But if we truly see clearly with total mindfulness that everything changes, then that fear no longer holds power. At that moment, we begin to cherish every moment because it is short and fragile. We learn how to let go when it is time to leave, because we no longer demand eternity. From that perspective, life suddenly becomes completely different. It is no longer a battle against loss, but a dance with the flow, because impermanence also means that suffering will pass, that wounds will heal, and that even darkness cannot stay forever. If there were no impermanence, there would be no hope for healing. If there were no impermanence, the mistakes and delusions of a person would bind them for eternity, giving no opportunity for any growth. The paradox is that many people, upon hearing the word impermanence, immediately feel fear. They imagine it as a sentence, a curse that everything they love will disappear. But in truth, impermanence has never been the enemy. It is the greatest gift that life bestows, because thanks to impermanence, we can change, we can grow, and we can step out of the shadow of suffering to find the light of freedom. That was also the first insight under the Bodhi tree that made the Buddha unlike anyone else. He saw not only the truth of a human life, but the operating truth of the entire universe. Everything is born and then ceases. Even the brightest joy cannot keep its original form. Even the darkest sadness does not last forever. And from that insight, a path opened up, a path leading humans out of the vicious cycle of suffering. If you look really closely, impermanence is not just a philosophical principle. It is the deep, hidden heartbeat of life. A flower blooming in freshness already contains the seeds of withering. A baby crying out at birth, right from that moment, the aging process has begun. A thought just born in the mind is already preparing to dissolve to make way for another thought. Nothing stops, nothing stands still, and that truth, if not seen with mindful eyes, becomes the source of clinging and suffering. But when seen, a miracle arises. Humans no longer live in the obsession of loss but begin to live in gratitude. Every breath becomes a miracle. Every meeting becomes a unique treasure, because it will never repeat a second time in eternity. Impermanence, from then on, is no longer a death knell but becomes a bell of awakening. That is why the Buddha placed impermanence at the center, like the heart of all Dharma phenomena. Without that insight, humans cannot understand why they suffer and cannot step through the door of liberation, because impermanence is both the naked truth of existence and the key that opens the deepest freedom. If anyone thinks that impermanence only exists in the major events of human life, birth and death, gathering and parting, success and failure, then surely they have missed where it is present most closely. Impermanence is not a distant philosophy but a silent flow in the tiniest details. It appears when a hair falls onto the pillow each morning, when a scar fades over the years, when a heartbeat settles after a surge of emotion. It weaves through every relationship, when a close friend from yesterday suddenly becomes a stranger today, when a word of love that once burned hot becomes just a vague echo in memory. It flows through a sunny morning, through a sudden rain shower, through the seasons of trees changing leaves. It weaves into even the thoughts not yet named, into fleeting emotions not yet recognized. Yet humans often do not see it, not because it is hidden, but because we are too busy running after things we think are immutable, busy building sandcastles in the desert and hoping they last forever, busy holding on, busy judging, busy expecting and being disappointed. We do not live with impermanence. We are dragged along by impermanence. We do not dance with the flow but let the flow sweep us away, leaving us battered and panicked. Only when truly stopping do people see that every moment is unique, never repeating a second time. Even this meeting, that gaze, that smile, is both the first time and the last time in eternity. Seeing this, naturally, the soul calms down, no longer rushing, no longer demanding, leaving only cherishing and gratitude. But immediately a question arises: if impermanence is the nature of all existence, why do we still suffer? Why do we keep clinging to things that will certainly change? The answer lies deep within an invisible habit that has taken root in the human mind over thousands of years. Clinging. It is precisely because of clinging that impermanence, which is inherently a natural truth, becomes the root of suffering. We cling to youth as if it will never leave. We cling to love as if it is immutable amidst the changing currents of life. We cling to success, fame, family, dreams, and even sadness, as if they can exist forever in their original form. But this world is not a stationary stage. No character keeps the same face. No scenery stops changing color. Everything quietly changes shape and form every split-second ksana. Because we do not see or refuse to see, we fall into our own trap. When what we love changes, we panic. When what we cherish disappears, we despair. When what we once trusted collapses, we resent life. But the truth is that nothing has betrayed us. Only the illusion we built has shattered under the light of reality. The Buddha called that clinging by the word upadana. The deep root of all suffering is not that the world is imperfect and thus we suffer, but because we want it to stand still while its nature is movement. Clinging to what is changing is no different than grasping water in your hand. The tighter you squeeze, the faster the water flows through your fingers. The more we try to keep, the more cruel the loss becomes in our perception. If we see that clearly, we begin to understand. It is not youth, love, or success that betrayed us. Only the clinging, the demand for permanence and what is inherently impermanent, is the culprit pushing us into the endless spiral of suffering. And when we understand, a miraculous ability opens up. The ability to let go at the right time. The ability to love without possessing. The ability to live fully without needing to hold on. That is a kind of freedom nothing can strip away. That freedom doesn't come from controlling the flow, but from learning to walk with it, harmonize with it, and dance with it. At that moment, humans no longer view impermanence as a curse, but as a door opening to liberation. Many people, when hearing of impermanence, shrink back as if standing before a curse. They fear loss, fear change, fear the irresistible end of everything they love. But the Buddha never pointed out impermanence to sow fear. He pointed it out so we realize that this is the greatest gift life offers. If life were immutable, sadness would stay forever. Wounds would never heal. Mistakes, once made, would cling to a person until the very end. If the mind were immutable, delusion, resentment, and fear would bind us tight with no exit. It is thanks to impermanence that growth becomes possible. It is thanks to impermanence that compassion blooms right in the desert of suffering. It is thanks to impermanence that a lost, suffering, confused person can one day step into the light. We still often think of impermanence as a sad bulletin about death. But the truth is, it is also a door opening to new life. The Buddha did not point out impermanence to remind us of decay, but to awaken a different way of living without being controlled by the fear of loss. When seeing impermanence, we no longer despair when a door closes, no longer feel stunned when a relationship breaks or a dream collapses. We understand that every closing is an opening for something new. Every loss is just a transformation of form. If the mind knows acceptance, impermanence becomes an invitation, not a threat. It invites us to live fully in every moment. because we know that moment will never return. It invites us to love without needing to possess, because we understand that every confinement only turns love into a prison. It invites us to let go without resentment, because we know nothing has betrayed us. Only the flow of existence is continuing to transmit itself. Seeing this, humans no longer live in a defensive mindset, anxiously fighting against life. They walk amidst changes with a heart as soft as water. When the wind rises, water doesn't shatter, it just shifts to the rhythm. When a stone falls, water doesn't resist, just wraps around it. Living in impermanence is exactly like that, embracing fluctuation as an essential part of the lively dance called existence. There is a paradoxical truth. The more humans crave certainty, the easier they suffer. And it is impermanence that brings the only certainty that nothing stands still instead of viewing it as a threat. Let's view it as a guarantee that we can always change, that any darkness must eventually yield to dawn. If looking with those eyes, we will realize a miracle. Impermanence is not a death sentence for happiness, but the very soil for true happiness to sprout. Happiness does not lie in keeping everything immutable, but in opening the heart to receive change with gratitude. When we know today's joy will fade, we cherish it more. When we know pain will also pass, we are more patient and gentle with ourselves. When we know that this self is just a changing flow, we no longer squeeze the ego so tight that we are ready to fight the whole world to protect it. That is why, in every teaching, the Buddha ceaselessly mentioned impermanence as a root truth. Who sees that truth clearly, that person has placed the first step on the path to liberation. Who has not yet seen, that person will forever chase after illusions. Thinking that happiness comes from holding on and suffering is because the world is unfair. But in truth, suffering only arises when we do not accept change. When humans truly see, they begin to live differently. A tiny moment can become a door leading to freedom. A breath going in and out becomes a reminder that life is continuing within us, that we don't need to run to find something immutable to rely on. And from there, life is no longer a battlefield but becomes a journey to observe, to learn, to grow, to truly see impermanence. Humans don't need to accumulate more lofty definitions. What is needed is simply knowing how to stop. Stop amidst the endless races to listen to the fragile breath in the chest. Stop right within a smile, a tear, to feel they are also changing every split second. A breath in, a breath out, none are the same. Life seems immutable, but is actually changing in every invisible moment. A thought just arises. It exists for a moment then disappears, giving way to another thought, another emotion. A flower blooming, right in its freshness, contains withering. Right in beauty, there are seeds of change. Impermanence is not a distant truth. It is present, breathing with us, dissolving with us, every moment that we indifferently let slip by. The problem is humans rarely have enough courage to stay with what is. We often avoid what is unpleasant and run after what we desire. But when having enough courage to look straight, without judgment, without expectation, we see impermanence is no longer a concept but becomes a living truth, seeping into every step, every glance, every word, and in that seeing, a new power sprouts, the power of awakening. Thanks to that vision, humans step into a different living space, where freedom is no longer a theory. People begin to take very light steps through life, no longer afraid, no longer clinging, no longer resenting anything that comes and goes. In a world where everything changes, true freedom lies not in how much we control or what we keep, but in the fact that even if everything changes, we are not dragged along. A person who truly understands impermanence does not love with the fear of loss, does not succeed with anxious dread, does not attach to a dream as if it were the final destiny. They love fully but are willing to let go when that love needs to go. They strive with all their heart but do not let success or failure define their self-worth. They walk amidst changes but keep within a foundation of unshakable mindfulness. That very mindfulness is liberation. It doesn't come from the external world stopping its changes, but from our mind no longer being bound by impossible desires when seeing impermanence clearly. We stop looking for permanent happiness in temporary things. We stop blaming life when it doesn't operate according to our will. We stop resenting when a door closes. We know that without change, growth would never happen. When acceptance of impermanence becomes deep, a miraculous power rises. The power to love without binding. The power to give without expecting return. The power to live every moment with gratitude, as if every moment is the last gift we receive from life. That is a kind of freedom that cannot be stripped by time, by loss, or by any event. From that place, every small action in daily life becomes an expression of wisdom and compassion. A glance, a smile, a gentle word is enough to spread liberation. But to live like that, one must remember one thing. Just understanding impermanence intellectually is not enough. Only direct experience, living with it, breathing with it, opening the heart to it every day truly, and does the invisible change. When that happens, humans no longer need to seek freedom in some far-off place. Freedom is already available, seeping into every changing moment, every split second of life. The world has never stopped for a moment to wait for us. From the movement of distant stars to the fragile beat in the chest, all are quietly changing. Impermanence is not an enemy but a great teacher, teaching humans to cherish, to let go, to live. When seeing that truth clearly, people stop wasting their lives in regret and fear, because they know holding tight won't keep it, running away won't escape it. Humans begin to learn to love without possessing, living a day without needing certainty about tomorrow, letting go in peace instead of despair, and gradually realizing the most precious thing is not what can be kept, but how we are fully present in every changing moment. Once impermanence becomes a living truth in the mind, humans no longer look at life with defensive eyes. They open their hearts to let every fluctuation pass without losing their peace. Even when a relationship breaks, they no longer view it as a full stop, but as an essential transformation. Even when a dream collapses, they no longer resent but view it as a door opening for something new to enter. And every closing, there is already the germ of life for a beginning. This sounds paradoxical. Precisely because everything changes, one can find immutable freedom. Freedom is not keeping life still, but walking amidst change without being dragged along. A person who truly sees impermanence can love with all their heart, but not tremble before loss. They can strive fully but not lose themselves when failing. They can walk in storms with a heart still soft like water embracing stone, like wind gliding over mountains. At this point, the Buddha pointed out a beautiful paradox. The path to liberation is not finding a safe place to hide from change, but learning to live with change. When seeing that all things dissolve, we stop seeking permanent happiness and things that are only temporary. When seeing that this self is just a flow of thoughts, emotions, and body, we no longer squeeze the ego to fight the whole world. From that vision, a rare power rises, the power to love without confining, the power to give without calculation, the power to be present in every breath as if it were the last gift. This is not surrender but liberation from the illusion of permanence. This is not loss but finding, in the fragility of existence, a peace that cannot be stripped away. And then we suddenly understand, impermanence does not steal happiness. It is what allows happiness to exist. If there were no sunset, sunrise would never be so brilliant. If there were no separation, meeting would never be so precious. If there were no death, life would never be seen as a miracle. Living in an ever-changing world, humans often think strength lies in the ability to hold tight. But actually, the greatest strength lies in the ability to let go. Letting go is not losing but learning to trust the natural rhythm of life. Like a river not trying to hold every drop of water, like the sky not keeping a cloud. When understanding impermanence, humans also know to let go at the right time for the flow to take them further. A person who sees this truth clearly will no longer equate self-worth with success or failure. They know fame will fade, status will change, praise and blame also pass like wind. The only thing remaining is how we lived each day. Were we present in every moment? Did we love fully? Were we grateful for every fragile minute? At that time, every small action becomes an expression of liberation. The important thing is to understand that knowing about impermanence is not enough. The mind might agree, but if the heart hasn't experienced it, one will still tremble when loss knocks. Only by living with it, breathing with it, opening to it daily, do the invisible chains truly dissolve. Every time stopping to observe a breath, listening to a thought arise and perish, accepting a changing emotion, all are small but steady steps on the path of freedom. And from there we no longer need to seek freedom far away. It is here in every changing moment. Impermanence is not a slamming door, but a door always wide open. It invites us to step through, to drop the illusion of permanence and enter a life where love is no longer binding, joy needs no possession, and suffering becomes a silent teacher guiding us. Try to imagine, if today were the last time you saw the sky, with what eyes would you look at it? If this meeting were the last, what would you say? When knowing every moment is unique and never repeats, we will no longer be hurried, no longer indifferent. Every breath becomes a miracle, every glance becomes a legacy, every touch becomes priceless. That is how the Buddha invites us to live, mindful amidst impermanence, not running away, not clinging tight, just quietly present with complete gratitude. At that time, freedom is no longer a distant dream, it is a vivid experience, present in every minute we walk on this earth. When deeply understanding that, humans stop fearing, stop resenting, stop clinging. They learn to let go with a smile instead of tears. They learn to love as if never hurt, to give as if needing nothing back, to live as if this is the last day. And in that courage, a new life begins, a life of liberation, of compassion, of wisdom, of peace amidst the endless flow. Because ultimately, the greatest gift impermanence gives us is not loss but awakening. It reminds us that there is nothing to keep forever but also nothing to fear forever. Every door closes only to open another. Every pain is only to sow seeds for a new strength, and every moment, though brief, can become a miracle if we truly live in it.